Games of this generation, it's time for a refresher. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 things to remember before playing The Last of Us Part 2.
And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
For this list, we'll be looking at important story and character details from The Last of Us that may play a big part in Naughty Dog's upcoming sequel. As such, we're issuing a major spoiler alert. Games of this generation, it's time for a refresher. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 things to remember before playing The Last of Us Part 2.
And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
For this list, we'll be looking at important story and character details from The Last of Us that may play a big part in Naughty Dog's upcoming sequel. As such, we're issuing a major spoiler alert. Games of this generation, it's time for a refresher. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 things to remember before playing The Last of Us Part 2.
And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
For this list, we'll be looking at important story and character details from The Last of Us that may play a big part in Naughty Dog's upcoming sequel. As such, we're issuing a major spoiler alert. Number 10. Sarah's death.
Honey, I need to get your daddy on the phone.
Uncle Tommy, what time is it?
I need to talk to your dad now. There's something...
Uncle Tommy? Hello?
The opening level of The Last of Us is now one of gaming's most infamous. 20 years before the game's events, Joel loses his daughter Sarah. It's completely heartbreaking, but it sets the mood for the game as well as Joel's character arc with Ellie. Sarah's death was felt intensely during every argument between the two, where every time Joel guarded his feelings from Ellie. Given that the sequel will follow a more adult Ellie 5 years later, it will be interesting to see if the strained father-daughter dynamic is still intact. Trailers have made the pair seem a bit estranged, though there are plenty of reasons as to why that could be.
What the hell are you doing here?
You think I'd let you do this on your own?
Number 9. Sam and Henry's deaths.
How many are with you?
They're all dead, mate.
We don't know that.
The Last of Us is packed with plenty of shocking moments, though not many were more alarming than the deaths of Sam and Henry. Players encountered these brothers in Pittsburgh and spent more time with them than other characters. But when an infected Sam was put down by Henry, the elder brother took his life out of grief. It was an important wake-up call for players that happiness in this world is all too brief. It's also a message for Part 2. Death and sorrow wait around every corner, so you might want to be careful about which characters you get attached to.
Please stop!
Number 8. Quarantine zones.
Attention. Citizens are required to carry a fresh ID at all times. Compliance with all city personnel is mandatory.
Look at that. The ration line hasn't opened yet. Must be running low again.
To combat the rapidly spreading infection, the Federal Disaster Response Agency and the US military set up quarantine zones in many major cities. Over the course of time, many of these areas fell to infected or citizen uprisings. And with the oppressive military at constant war with the radical Fireflies, Joel's quarantine zone in Boston didn't seem much safer than the outside world. These problematic homes are some of the only links to former society. It's unclear if we'll see any still under government control in the sequel, but as it's set only 5 years later, it's very likely. We also wouldn't be surprised if their complete failure pointed towards humanity slipping further and further from what it once was.
What's your business here? Had a day off. Visiting a friend. All right, we'll run through it. Thanks.
Number 7. Bill's isolation.
Ellie. Hey, what are you... Joel?
Bill!
What are you doing?
Bill! Turn around and get on your knees.
Calm down a second.
Turn around
All right.
and get on your knees.
Bill is by far the most hostile friendly to accompany players in The Last of Us. He's rude, sets traps, and lives alone so as to not get attached to others. But he's also one of the only characters to make it out alive. So we can't help but wonder if his philosophy is right. Is it safer to be alone in this world? Is it better living a bitter, solitary existence? Trailers for Part 2 have focused on various communities, though it's always possible we'll see someone like him again. With his apparent survival, we could also see him pop up in the sequel. But with his way of life, that seems unlikely.
Square. We're square. Get the f*** out of my town.
Number 6. David.
Well, maybe we could trade you for some of that meat there. What do you need? Weapons? Ammo? Clothes?
Medicine.
Similar to how Sam and Henry should warn players about getting attached in Part 2, this character should warn you about trusting anyone. With Joel injured, Ellie meets David, a seemingly kind man who helps her fight off a horde of infected, but he's soon revealed to be the leader of a cannibalistic group after he kidnaps Ellie. Her escape is one of the most traumatic events in a long list of terrible experiences. His community was far from the only aggressive group of humans players came across. However, his soft-spoken deception made the villainous reveal feel all the more personal. We all better be on our toes in Part 2. Number 5. Tommy's Commune.
I bring her here. I'm supposed to deliver to the Fireflies. The way I figure they're your boys. You finish the job, you collect the whole damn thing.
I haven't seen a Firefly in years.
You know where they are.
The Last of Us ends with Joel and Ellie returning to Tommy's Commune in Jackson, Wyoming, and it's the opening setting for the sequel. While there is a shootout here in the first game, it's the only community that isn't completely ravaged by the player or some other force. Trailers have shown that they've grown substantially during the 5-year gap. With work to be done and relationships formed, it may be the closest thing Ellie has to a home. However, a press demo last year featured Ellie rescuing a captured Tommy from a militaristic group in Seattle. While it's unclear if the commune fails, just remember what we said about getting attached.
Maria.
Here we go.
You. If anything at all happens to him, it's on you.
Number 4. Ellie's relationship with Riley.
So dumb. Come on. When have we ever gotten into trouble?
While Ellie only mentions Riley in the main game, she plays a critical role in the Left Behind DLC, as well as the tie-in comic American Dreams. Riley is Ellie's best friend and love interest who joins the Fireflies only to get bitten with Ellie. It's this tragic event that causes Ellie to realize she's immune to the infection symptoms. As she's fairly young, we can assume Riley is the first person that Ellie develops real feelings for. Part 2 will introduce a more prominent love interest, Dina. But will she be the first person Ellie allows herself to have feelings for since Riley's demise? And will Riley's fate impact how Ellie chooses to move forward with Dina?
You're such a dick. Come on. Why don't you start with me?
Number 3. The progression of the cordyceps infection. The cordyceps brain infection differentiates itself from other zombie viruses by showcasing naturally progressive stages. Stage 1 runners are produced incredibly quickly after being bitten or inhaling spores. Stage 2, or stalkers, happens after a week of infection with the fungus beginning to grow on the outside of the host's head. The game's main infected enemy, Stage 3 clickers, are produced after a year of exposure. They've developed echolocation due to the fungus completely blinding them. Years must pass before the infected reach Stage 4. Bloaters have fungal plates growing over their entire body, which act as armor. We'll likely see all these stages in Part 2, but the new Shambler shows environmental factors can also play a part in the infection's progression.
Large, heavily armored enemies that are covered in pustule. Upon getting close to you, they expel a corrosive spore cloud that burns its victim.
Number 2. The demise of the Fireflies.
You can still do the right thing here. She won't feel anything.
The game's explosive finale ends with Joel killing a group of Fireflies and their leader Marlene in order to save Ellie. Marlene's numbers were dwindling beforehand, and although she was their leader, it's unlikely that these were the last remaining members. Before Sam and Henry's deaths, they were on their way to join the Fireflies. With people still willing to fight for their cause, it wouldn't be surprising if the group showed back up in the sequel. If they know what Joel did, they might come looking for revenge. Or they might hunt down Ellie to continue their search for a cure.
Please. You just come after her.
Want more video game content? Check out our Number 1. Joel's Lie.
Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually.
Joel's decision to kill the Fireflies and lie to Ellie about the possibility of a cure is one of the most fascinating and morally gray endings in modern games. It's also the one element guaranteed to impact the plot of Part 2 the most. The estranged dynamic between Ellie and Joel in the trailers could point towards Ellie knowing the truth, or we could see her learn the truth over the course of the game. Co-directors Kurt Marganow and Anthony Newman stated Ellie's tattoo is meant to cover up her bite mark, so she definitely doesn't want people to know she's immune. Joel and Ellie's relationship is what carries The Last of Us, and we can't wait to see how Joel's lie has put that at risk.
Okay.